Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out the show this week. We've got a really great episode for you this week. We've got Sam Castronova, quarterback for the Albany Firebirds, on the show. We talk about his football journey, what led him to arena ball, his different stops he's had along the way, and of course this year's Albany Firebirds team. And then a special guest makes a little cameo during the interview as well, which was a treat. But yeah, thank you to Sam for hopping on and enjoying the show this week. We'll also dive into the AF1 action from this past weekend, the IFL action from this past weekend, and you guessed it, the NAL action from this past weekend. So the NAL playoffs are coming up. IFL is entering the back half of their season, and the AF1 is starting to take shape in terms of what the playoffs are going to look like. But before we dive into any of that, it's time to plug the socials. That's right. If you aren't already, please make sure you're following us on Instagram, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, all the things and stuff at Off the Wall FB. F as in foot, B as in ball. Off the wall, off the wall. I'll get better with that. It's a new setup. I'm still getting used to it. Make sure you're following us on all there. Come say hi. Come join in on the conversation as we watch these games progress throughout the weekend. And if you're watching on YouTube, hello, thank you for being here. Please make sure you're liking the video and subscribing to the channel as well. It helps the channel grow. We're almost at 200 subscribers, which is crazy. Thank you so much to everyone for all the love and support so far. You can check out the latest episode of the Turf Tapes that we did a little bit earlier this week with Krish from Shady Sports. And he let off some hot takes, as I knew he would, which was very exciting for all the viewers that joined in live. But you can watch the replay on there and then check out some past interviews as well. But if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, you please make sure you're rating the show on each of those platforms, 5 stars preferably. But hey, do you, and liking the episode, sharing with a friend, and helping grow this thing out. So let's not waste any more time. Here's the interview with Sam Castronova. All right, on the show this week, we have a quarterback who's been one of the absolute best in the sport over the past 5 years. He's the starting quarterback for the undefeated Albany Firebirds in the AF1. His name is Sam Castronova. Sam, appreciate you taking the time to hop on the show this week. How are things up in Albany as we come up on the end of this inaugural AF1 season?
Yeah, things are going smooth. Obviously, we're 9-0, one regular season game left. Actually back home in Buffalo right now because we have a double bye week before our last game. So
yeah,
I'll be here for a little bit and then head back, and hopefully we can finish the season out strong. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, happy to have you on. Happy to pick your brain about the arena game because you've been around it for a little while now, and you've been in a couple different leagues and have excelled across the board. So I'm excited to kind of hear things from your perspective. But before we dive into some of that, tell us a little bit about your football journey and what led you to the arena game.
Yeah, growing up, I always loved basketball. Basketball was my first love. I thought I was going to be the next Steve Nash and whatnot. And things kind of like sophomore, junior year of high school, things kind of set in. Like I'm 6'1", I'm not the fastest guy. I'm probably not making the NBA, but
right.
I started taking off football. I didn't play till 7th grade for football, and then things kind of started taking off. And I thought I had a higher ceiling for football, so I decided to play that in college. And I had some Division II offers out of high school, but chose to go play junior college at Erie Community College here in Buffalo. And actually, my freshman year, I played football and basketball.
Oh, wow.
And then my sophomore year, just football because I went to my school in the spring of that year. But I got a scholarship to Bethel University, which is a NAI school, which is, I would say, pretty similar to some D2 schools. We were in a pretty good conference, and a couple guys every year would go to the NFL from our conference. So that was like kind of what made me choose that. But
yeah,
my junior year there, we struggled. We were 3-7. I won the job. We were 3-7 or 4-7, something like that. But I broke the school record for total yards in a season. But we kind of tried running the ball the first half. It wasn't working. We'd be down 2 or 3 scores and then try and catch back up in the second half. And it just wasn't. It was the best game plan. So the next year, our coach got fired. We got a new coach. We had all the same starters. I would say of our 22 offensive and defensive starters, we probably had 18 returning.
Wow.
We went 10-0 as my senior season.
Very nice.
I broke my own record, and I broke a couple other cool records. And it was actually my head coach was a quarterback at Bethel about 20 years before me. So I broke a bunch of his records. So that was
cool.
No.
How did you feel about that?
I think the first half of the year he was like, yeah, and then he was happy for me.
He was like, yeah, slow it down. We're going to run the ball a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing was we were RPO offense, so we probably were straight 50-50 run and
Hmm.
pass. But we led the nation scoring my senior year, D1, D2, D3, NAI. So that was like Kyler Murray's senior year, and
Wow.
I think we just edged Oklahoma like by like 1 point per game.
Dang.
So after that, I tried to do pro day and everything, and nothing really worked out as far as the NFL. Um, I went to the Bills local day. I got invited to that, but they ended up not bringing me for camp. So then I did some XFL camps. I did some CFL camps. I was always getting good feedback, but no one was actually signing me. So I was like, okay,
Hmm.
well, I don't know what to do here. And then
Yeah.
my buddy Vinny Gregory, shout out to Vince. He just got signed by Fisher. He got a game tonight, so I got to tune
Yeah.
into that after this. And then, but he signed with Carolina Cobras, and then he told the coach about me, and then they saw my film and they signed me. And I was supposed to go there in 2020. That didn't happen because of COVID, and
Right.
then finally ended up going there 2021.
And it's been all up uphill or downhill. It's all uphill. It all looked up from there.
Yeah, well,
Obviously,
rookie
yeah.
rookie season was a lot of tests,
Yeah.
rough for me. We won our first game, game winning field goal through a pass, killed the clock, game winning field goal. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I love arena football. And then we lost four straight, and
Yeah.
then I got benched. And then I came into the game. The game I got benched, I was second string. I came into the game. We were down 33-14 to Jacksonville Sharks. We come all the way back. We take the lead with like 30 seconds left, and then we kick off. They get the ball, first play, touchdown. And so then the next game, they didn't even dress me. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going home.
Yeah.
You can, because he said, well, we want to keep you here, but I said, I'm not doing that. I just got married to my wife like 4 months before the season. I said, I'm gonna go home, just release me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Right.
then that happened, and then I wasn't really sure what I was gonna do the next year. I think I finished the season in Carolina with 20 touchdowns and four interceptions, um, which based on my stats the last few years sounds like nothing, but
Yeah. Right.
I didn't think I was playing the worst ball. But when you're a quarterback and your team's struggling, you're always going to get them. When you get them praise when you win, you get the blame when
Right.
you lose. So you know how it
Yep.
goes. But got a call from Coach Ware that off season, and then went to Albany my second year. Ended up not winning the job. Mike Faithful won the job for week one. And some crazy stuff happened, and Mike ended up leaving the team, and then started week two in Jacksonville again. And I think I had like 7 touchdowns, one player of the week, and kind of we took off after that. My second year, which was my first year in Albany.
Yeah. A lot of history in Jacksonville. I'm noticing a theme over the first couple of years.
Yeah,
Did you know about arena football growing up, or was it something you kind of discovered as you were looking
I
for options?
I knew a little bit because I knew about Kurt Warner, obviously, and then
Yep.
I knew of the AFL because my buddy Jordan Williams, who was about 2 or 3 years older than me, in Buffalo, he played for the Philadelphia Soul and he played for Albany, or they were the Empire then, probably like 2018, 2019. So I watched
Hmm.
that championship that Albany won in Albany versus the Soul on ESPN because my buddy was playing in it. So that's kind
Yeah.
of I had a little bit taste of it, but not like I didn't know all the rules or nothing. I was just confused with somebody else probably throwing on one of our games for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people running around before you're like, what? No. Okay.
Yeah,
All right, I
yeah,
guess.
it was different.
Well, when you first signed with Carolina, do you distinctly remember any initial like welcome to arena football moments where you're like, oh, this is very different from what I'm used to?
Well, I mean, well, what was crazy was for camp we were not indoors; we were outside practicing. So my
Hmm.
very first time playing arena football was in New Jersey versus New Jersey Flight. On first time inside the walls was the game, my first game.
Game day.
So that
Okay.
was like, oh, like it was definitely different because we were practicing outside just with lines and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a shock, but I felt like I adjusted pretty good. But and then I actually got hurt the very first game. I thought I broke my collarbone. I ended up had a sprained
Ooh.
shoulder, sprained my AC joint, and then we had a bye week, and then we went to Albany the next week. And before that, I could barely throw probably 30, 40 yards, and then testosterone kicked in, and we actually offensively we played pretty good against Albany. I think I had 8 touchdowns, and we lost by 20 points.
That's the way it goes sometimes. You could do everything in the world, and you're like, what more could I have possibly done here? Like,
That's arena football. That was probably for me. Like, okay, this is arena football. It's going to be high
yeah.
scoring. You better score every time, or else don't expect to win.
Yeah, I remember I think I was watching an IFL game where Sean King, former quarterback for the Bucks and Tulane way back in the day, he mentioned playing for Vegas. He goes, "Yeah, one of my first games, I threw 10 touchdowns and we lost." And it's like that's that's the way it goes.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
it.
way it goes. Well, you mentioned earlier about basketball being your first love. I've been listening to some interviews you've done recently. It sounds like you're quite the hooper. And you guys play a little pickup ball in Albany in your free time?
We did in camp. We kind of shut it down during the season because we
Right.
didn't want to rest nothing. But we definitely got after a little bit in camp. Our strength coach knows somebody that knows has a gym, so we put it was only half court, so that kind of was a little bit
Okay.
better for risking stuff. But we would play 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and yeah, I got a pretty good win percentage during the 3 or 4 times we played.
Yeah. Who's the best guy to play one-on-one with? Like who gives you the most competition?
Well, we didn't really play 1-on-1, but Mike Lee tries his very hardest to guard me. I mean, he locks in for sure. So I don't like playing 1-on-1 against him because he's
Yeah.
very very quick defender. Dwayne DB is can hoop. He's like a slasher, very athletic. And then actually DJ Walden actually can hoop pretty good. He's very like for I guess for a bigger dude. He's our defensive end, but he's not that big. He's like
Yeah.
5'11", but he's strong as heck, and he's got like some shiftiness to his game. So
Okay.
those guys can all play a little bit. There's a few more. Zeke can play a little bit for being a big boy. There's a few other guys we were playing with. It was
Yeah.
fun. It was building some camaraderie too.
Yeah. If you see Zeke coming down the paint, get out of the way.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. I'm
no,
all
it
good
is
on
what it
that.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all set.
you got it, buddy. Take the one. I'll take the twos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So after Carolina, you mentioned going up to Albany, obviously had a great enough experience there that you came back this year in 2025. What was that first 2022 season like, and what do you remember the most about that year with that team?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I learned I learned a ton about the game. I learned a ton about myself because we started off hot for my first 2 or 3 games. We won pretty good. We were averaging like 60 points a game, and then we kind of hit a rough patch. And coaches was talking about, oh, we might have to bring somebody else in, blah blah blah. And like at that point, I knew like I can play this game. Like
Right.
I know what I can do. So just had to lock in a little bit, and we locked it back in. I think we won our final 7 or 8 games of the season and won the championship. So yeah, it was a heck of an experience. And then I actually re-signed the following year for 23, but
Yeah.
that's when the whole 3 games in, that's when the AB nonsense just went
Yep.
crazy. So, so I ended up I was coming home. My son was like 5 or 6 months old at the time, so I was planning on just being done with the season and just being home with my wife and Tatum. But
Right.
then Coach Gibson called me down in Jacksonville. He's like, my quarterback just got hurt. He's out for the season. I need a quarterback, and it was just kind of like I wasn't really planning on going anywhere right away. I was gonna sit down and it was kind of like I think God worked it out in a perfect way. So
Yeah.
ended up going down to Jacksonville. We didn't lose a game when I was in Jacksonville. I think I was 10 or 11-0 every game I started there, and then we won every game by 10 or more points, other than the championship. We won by 9.
Oh,
So it was
only nine. Yeah.
yeah, we won by 9, but it was a very close game. We were down about I think we were down 17 at one point in the championship
Yeah.
and brought it back. But yeah, that was a ton of fun too. The fans down there were pretty crazy. I mean, we got like 7 to 10,000 every game in Jacksonville, so that was
Yeah.
packed out. And then uh, last year went to the IFL, which
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any questions about that, but I ended up Coach Manas, who coached me in 22 and 23 in
Yeah.
Albany, ended up going to San Antonio, and he wanted me pretty good out there, and I was like, IFL, I don't know, like different rules,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he sold me pretty good, so I ended up going down there last year.
Yeah, so touching on Jacksonville, you mentioned joining mid-season. What was that like? Like coming into a locker room where they kind of already have some camaraderie set, and you're the new guy coming in and just trying to blend in. And obviously it worked, making your way to the championship that year. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, that was definitely a different experience because everywhere else I'd been, I started the season there, so the good thing was Skip Ross, Jabari Gorman, Jimmy Goodlow, and there's maybe one other guy I had played with the year before in Albany, and they were down in Jacksonville. So I kind of
Okay.
knew three or four guys already, and then knew of some other guys playing against them. And so I built some great relationships down there. I still talk to some of those guys to this day. So it was a ton of fun, and we picked up pretty quick. It was funny. It's the first week of practice. We practiced early in the morning outside, and it was like it would be drizzling all the time. And we had the arena balls, the rubber balls, and
Yeah.
like I couldn't like the ball kept slipping out my hand, all this stuff, and I look up at Coach Gibson. He's like, "Who the heck?" He's like, "Who the heck did I just sign in the first game?" I think the first game I had 7 or 8 touchdowns, and
Yeah.
I only had like 2 incompletions. And then after that, he took a deep breath. He's like, "Okay, this is a guy who
All
I
right, we're
want."
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing with some of those like smaller like the where the composite balls where like the best quarterbacks in any league sometimes it just happens.
yep.
It just happens where the ball will just slip out and
That's
it's
why I've
like,
been wearing a
man,
glove the last 4 years. I mean,
yeah,
I uh, I don't have the biggest hands to begin with, but yeah, those balls get a little bit of sweat on them, or get a little sweat on your hand, slips right out.
it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned going over to San Antonio, reuniting with Coach Manas. That was one of the more prolific offenses we've ever seen in the IFL, and every game last year it was just like, okay, another banger, another must-watch game. We got to run it back. Was there a specific game or moment from last year that you remember the most?
Um, I don't know if there would be a specific thing. I just know that if you would have taken the over on DraftKings 14 of the 16 games, you would have made some money.
Yeah,
So,
no kidding.
um, that's what happens when you have the number one offense all year and the number 16 defense all year.
Yep.
But there was the one game was pretty cool in Massachusetts against Mass. We were kind of at that point like we have to win to just have a chance at the playoffs,
Hmm.
and it was back and forth, and I think we were down 7 with like a minute to go. We come down, we're about to score, and then we score. And I said, "Screw this! Like, let's go for 2." And Coach Fuller's like, "All right, screw it, let's go for 2." And he's like,
Yeah.
he asked Manas, he's like, "All right, let's do it." And then we hit the 2 point conversion. We kind of like put our nuts on the table, and we got it. We won the game. They had like 10 seconds left. They missed the field goal, and that was a pretty cool win because my family had driven down from Buffalo to be there, and
Oh, nice.
all the guys, and that was a pretty cool win.
That's great. Yeah, they're just so like you mentioned that number one offense and that number 16 defense. So it was like, man, the
Every
over
game
under
was
for
a
this game
shootout.
is 104. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my God, 104 points. That's crazy.
yeah. Then after that, I think every game was like a 110 or more because
Yeah.
they just kept going over.
Yeah. It's like no matter how high the number was, keep going, keep
Yep,
taking it. Yeah.
I
What
remember
was it
when.
about that? What was it about that offense that made it so good and so efficient? Like did things just click from day one?
I mean, we were talented too. I mean, DJ Myers, Naquan Murray,
Oh yeah.
Austin Upshaw was a rookie from SMU. I mean, he was just a great wall guy. And then you have Kali Rashad as your fourth guy. So it's like even if we had one guy go down, Kali was coming in and just
Yeah.
picking right up. And then we had a great O line. And I honestly like I think part of the reason is because Coach Fuller and I had a great rapport, but also because like the IFL is pretty much like 50-50 run, maybe more run than pass.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
said we said screw that. We probably threw it by 80, not 85% of the time because it
Yeah.
was working. And then I think towards the end of the year, teams maybe started to pick up just a little bit, but also it was tough to go out every week. Once you got eliminated, the last 2 games we were kind of I can't lie, we were a little bit defeated.
Right.
But we were still trying to go out and give it our best effort. But Arizona did a good job the last game of the season, and I think that was for them to get a higher seed or something. But that
Yeah.
was the only game where I felt like we didn't play up to our full potential because I think we only scored like 40 points, and that was not good for us.
Only 40. Only
Yeah,
40. Only,
38, something like
yeah.
that.
Well, what was the transition from that more traditional arena rule set to the IFL? Like, tell me about that. Was that harder than you thought? Easier than you thought?
A little bit of both, I'd say, because week one, um, it was definitely like, oh shoot, okay, like I'm so used to at that point. It's been 3 years or traditional arena football. So I'm used to
Right.
3 guys in coverage. The jack can't go further than 5 yards. Now there's 4 guys in coverage. Sometimes DNs are dropping.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think I had 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns the first game because I would drop back and I did not like what I was seeing. And I would just take off. So, and then San Diego had a good defense too. So we, it was definitely an adjustment, but, you just like a couple times I'll be used to throwing an over route and over route. Oh, this is
Right.
good. There's nobody else over there. And there's a couple times, oh shoot, there's a guy just sitting there waiting. So I got
Yeah.
lucky a couple times, but receiver went and broke it up or they dropped a pick. But it was that was just the biggest adjustment, just seeing like 4 or 5 guys in coverage sometimes instead of only 3 with a jack.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
2 guys in motion every play. It complicates the playbook a little bit more because you have to know, okay, this formation, there's which 2 guys are in motion instead of just 1 guy in motion.
Right. Yeah, you see it all the time. Like even late in the season, you'll sometimes see some confusion of like, wait, who's in motion? Am I in motion? No, he's in
Yeah.
motion. It's like, man, it's
It's a
definitely
lot.
not
It's a lot
easy.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Are there any rules from the indoor game that you would want to see make its way over to the arena game?
Hmm. Honestly, that's part of the reason why I came back to Albany this year because I missed these rules.
Okay.
So I'm a sucker for the old arena football, and
Yeah.
I think the nets add such a cool thing of effort and stuff on the kickoff,
Right.
bar balls, all that stuff that can happen. I think it's just more exciting. I know they cost more money, obviously, which is why some teams don't do it, but
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. I like the traditional arena football. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe that's because I'm an offensive guy, but our league is going to be probably higher scoring than the IFL because now they did even more. The defense can do even more. I've seen this year in the
Oh yeah.
IFL with the
Yeah.
stunts and the motions and stuff like that.
Well, it helps when you guys got a kicker like Henry Nell just going out there and making 4 deuces a game and ricocheting 5 balls off the bar.
Yeah, yeah. Henry's a stud for sure.
Yeah.
I was mad at him because like for a couple game stretch he'd only hit 1 deuce a game, and I'm like, Henry, we played against each other last year. He came down to San Antonio, and the first 4 kickoffs was a deuce, 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 deuce. TC hit one, then he hit one.
Yeah.
Sorry, hold on, buddy. What?
Yeah.
Hold it 1 second, okay? Can you go show Mama? You want to say hi to the people real quick? Come here. Say hi to the people. Come here. You want to show them? Come here. Yeah.
What's your name?
Say what's your name?
2.5.
No, what's your name?
Yeah.
Tatum. And how old are you?
2.5.
2.5.
2.5. Hi, Tatum. Nice to meet you.
He wants to show you guys. He drew Sharpie on his knee.
Oh, that's very nice.
That's good, buddy. That's good.
Don't you?
Yeah, we gotta take that off, okay? Go ask Mommy.
Bye, Tatum.
Sorry about that.
No,
You know,
is that his
boy,
first
boy,
interview
boy.
cameo?
No, actually, his first
No.
interview cameo was when he was 1 year old, and I do this local TV show in Buffalo where I just talk about the opposing Bills QB that week. Like say we're about to play the Dolphins, they'll bring me in, I'll tell them what I think we need to do to stop Tua, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Well, we did a Zoom one time during COVID. Tatum sitting in my lap, puked all over me after he just had his bomb.
No.
So that was his first one.
Okay, so it's all up from there. Yeah, can't bottom out.
Get no worse than that.
So you mentioned signing back with Albany this year, and before we dive into the season, was the decision to come back as easy as it seemed like it would be on paper? Like it seemed like a no-brainer and made too much sense for you.
Yeah, I mean, I loved my time in San Antonio, and I love the people there, and I love the Racklers. They're like some of the best people you'll ever meet. The biggest part of the decision for me was my family, being close to my family,
Right.
and we have a spot in Albany, so that's huge. And so my 2 sons, and my wife can be with me. They've been with me every game but one, every home game but one.
Oh,
so that
awesome.
that was the biggest deciding factor. And then, like I said, the other thing maybe was with the rules, and then obviously being familiar with Coach Ware and the people back there. But
Right.
yeah, it was an easy decision, but I was definitely torn with going back to San Antonio as well, just because of my familiarity there and how much I loved it down there.
Right.
Other than the heat kills me. I'm not built for that. I'm cold-blooded.
Yeah, that Texas heat is very different.
Yes.
Very different. Well, you guys are off to a fantastic start this season. The team seems to be buzzing all year. 9-0, like you mentioned. What is it about this team that has y'all playing at the level you're at right now?
I mean, I think we're just all locked in on one goal, and that was just to win a championship. I mean, Coach Ware's done a good job of getting us ready every week, and we've built a pretty cool connection, like among our teammates. Just we've all gotten pretty close, and we
Right.
all we all get along pretty good. We're always ripping on each other, but and like how like a brother would.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun together, and we've been super competitive, like offense versus defense, since the first day of camp till now. Like we're always trying to beat them. They're always trying to beat us, and I mean, iron sharpens iron. So
Yeah.
that's good for everybody.
Yeah, I remember on all the flock use leading up to the season, Coach Ware talking about the battles and training camp and how it was just every day was just a war.
Yeah.
It seems like that wide receiver room goes crazy every single game. What's it like lining up with them on a weekly basis? Because it seems like a pick your poison situation with that group where who are you going to
Yeah,
cover?
it's definitely a pick your poison. I mean, Dwayne's been killing it in the middle. I think he's on pace for like he's got 820 yards. So if he can have a big game next game, he can have 1,000 yards in 10 games, which is pretty unheard of in arena football.
Insane, yeah.
And then Isaiah Scott is a monster. I mean, nobody wants to tackle that guy. He looks like a linebacker, but he plays wide receiver. So he's been killing it this year. And then Townsend's one of the quickest guys I ever played with. So he's super tough to cover. So and then you have Wade coming off the bench if you need him. So
Right.
we all know what Wade can do in the kick return game, and then just as a receiver. So all those guys, I mean, they make me look good out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's even scary to think about the bench depth you guys have, where it's like, all right, Dwayne's a little tired this series. Okay, we'll go with Wade. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's crazy to think
He's
about.
33 years old. He probably still runs a 4.4.
Yeah, just that's insane. When you're lining up, you guys have run a couple of the big man touchdowns where you get to throw it over to one of the O linemen going out in the end zone. When that play call comes in, do you have to put on like a strong poker face walking up to the line? Like what's that like? Because that's got to be exciting getting one of the big guys the rock.
It is. I think I'm used to this point. I think the big guys have to put on the poker
Okay.
face because they get so excited because they don't score a lot of touchdowns. So
No.
it's like just be a good salesman.
Yep.
Do it, sell it for a little while, and then pop out. But we've done good. What stinks is my boy Zacher. He hasn't got one yet, but we got Hickbottom a touchdown. Nicholson's got a touchdown. We gotta get Zacher in the end zone. He's got a few catches, but we gotta get him in the end zone.
Yeah. Yeah. Every single time I see it happen, it warms my heart because I'm like, yes, let the big boys eat.
We got a picture of last game when Nicholson scored, and I'm going up to jump on him. You can see through his helmet. He's got the biggest smile on his face. And then Hardy plays tackles or guard, so he's never eligible. But we're like, why don't we switch you one time? He's like, I don't want to catch the ball. Okay,
that's too much pressure.
He's got great hands too. He's like,
yeah,
I don't want to. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. So I'm excited to see how the rest of the season goes for you. It's looking like gonna finish strong. Looking like probably gonna be another all league quarterback year for you for the third straight season, which is I don't think that's ever happened before. All NAL, all IFL, and then all another league. 3 straight years like that. It's nuts.
Yeah, I feel like I'm back in the NAL, but it's obviously the AF1 now. So
right, and you guys are making a strong push for the title in the playoffs as well. What's next for you after the 2025 season? Do you see yourself continuing to play in Albany and beyond?
Yeah, I definitely I think I might keep playing. It kind of just depends on what's best for my family and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm still playing at a pretty high level. I feel like I'm the old guy now, which is just crazy because I'm 28. I mean, I'm not that old, but
yeah,
I feel like the old guy now, which is funny. So yeah, I think I still got a lot left in the tank. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, at the level you're playing, I don't blame you. Keep going, keep winning, see what you can continue to build in Albany up there.
Yes, sir.
So this has been amazing. Like I said, thank you so much for hopping on the show. Everyone go follow Sam, go follow the Firebirds on socials. Links are in the description. One last one before we get out of here. What can Firebirds fans and arena football fans in general alike look forward to the rest of the season up in Albany?
Well, hopefully some high scores and 3 more victories. That's what trying to get the ring on our fingers. So hopefully a lot of points. Hopefully some deuces, Henry, and and 3 more dubs, and that's all it takes to bring home the championship.
Yep, the championship runs through MVP Arena this year, so we'll have to see how things shake out. But I appreciate the time again, and we'll have to talk soon. Best of luck the rest of the way. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, brother.
Big thanks to Sam for joining the show this week and talking through his football journey, some of the stops he's had along the way, and the fact that he is very likely going to be all AF1 this year, and just kind of touching on what we talked about, where he was all NAL 2 years ago, all IFL last year, and then he's going to be all AF1 this upcoming year. That's something I don't think we'll ever see again. And it's just an incredible feat and just shows that he's just a good quarterback, regardless of system, regardless of style. He just has what it takes to get it done. So make sure you go give him a follow on social. Let him know you heard him on Off the Wall. And yeah, thanks again to Sam. So we're going to dive into the AF1 scores from this past weekend. And the first one was a football game. That's the best way to describe it. The Washington Wolfpack went to Salina, Kansas to play the Salina Liberty, and Salina won this game 71-4. That's right, 71-4. So starting with Salina, this offense has just been playing unbelievable football over the past month or so. Malik Honeycutt is playing at an all first team AF1 level. He better be on that list at the end of the year. Otherwise, I'm going to have some strong words with the committee. And Rakeem Cato has just been playing outstanding at the quarterback position as well. And he threw 3 touchdowns in this one. And then they brought in backup quarterback Javin Kilgo. And even he threw 3 touchdowns in this one. And like I said, Malik Honeycutt got his weekly stipend of 3 touchdowns, and this offense was able to do whatever they wanted. The defense tortured the Washington O-line to the tune of 10 sacks on the day, and it felt like every play they were getting pressure on the quarterback. And Salina's doing their part to claim a playoff spot. They're still climbing out of that hole they put themselves in to start the year, but they're doing everything in their power to go full steam ahead and claim one of those spots. But they face a very tall task over the next coming weeks, facing the Southwest Kansas Storm, who still have something to play for as well. They're fighting for home field in the first round of the playoffs. So Southwest isn't just going to roll over and play the backups or anything like that. Southwest is going to take it to them, and the battle for Kansas is going to be a very, very fun one, not just once but twice. So depending on how the games shake out, both of these games back to back could be very, very important. But for Washington, I'm not going to waste a ton of my breath on this. It's incredible how they just find ways to be worse and worse and worse throughout the year. They scored 10 points in the game. You thought that would be the low point. No, they scored 9 points in the game. They scored 7 points in the game. It's statistically harder to score less than 7 points in the game, but they found a way. They had a drop kick field goal from Manny Higuera in the first half, and that was it. That was literally all they had. I know Salina has a talented defense, but we're 12 weeks into the year, and we got a 4-point performance from a team that's in their second year of existence, and just seems to be getting infinitely worse as the season goes on. You can make the case that they're even worse than they were last year at this point. And it's a shame because, like I've mentioned before on socials and on past episodes, the Wolfpack seem to be doing everything they can as an organization to build in their community. But this team that we're seeing take the field for Washington is undoing a lot of that goodwill that they're probably doing in their community. I'm not in Everett, so I can't speak to it, but it just seems like as much good as you're doing, as much community as you're building, a 4-point performance, a 7-point performance, a 9-point performance in arena football is just not going to cut it. Their branding is sweet. The community support is there. They just need the football team to match it. And they've got one more game to kind of showcase what they can do. But unfortunately for them, it's against the Albany Firebirds, who are sitting at 9-0 and waiting for the playoffs to start. So we very well could see another Albany Corpus situation where this game could get out of hand minutes into the game, and it's just going to be a tough road ahead for the Washington Wolfpack. But the next game we're going to talk about is the Oregon Lightning at the Billings Outlaws, and Billings won this game 58-7. So another blowout, and another team from the Pacific Northwest scoring in the single digits. You hate to see it. But for the Lightning, this was an opportunity to go on the road and win a massive game and potentially leapfrog the defending champions and snag a playoff spot. If they won out, they had a strong chance of getting that final playoff spot. But they laid the largest egg possible, and they just totally whiffed at every opportunity to score points. The defense was put in bad spots all throughout the game, and it just went as poorly as it could have for them. Dalton Cole ran for a touchdown, I think, in the second quarter, but that was literally the only offense that they could muster up. They're still technically alive, I guess, in the playoffs, but literally every single thing has to go their way, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But yeah, it's just a tough time to be an arena football fan in the Pacific Northwest, as both Oregon and Washington are both struggling on offense, and but obviously Oregon's in a much better spot than Washington is, but it's just not a good scene when both teams combined for 11 points in two games on the same weekend. It's just not great. But for Billings, this was a must win, as they got as good of an overall game from both sides of the ball as they could have asked for, honestly. Darius Prince had himself a ball game with 3 touchdowns yet again, and he had another over the wall grab that was fantastic. Running back slash tight end slash utility slash battering ram, Hunter Swoboda, friend of the program. He had 4 touchdowns on the ground and in the red zone, and he was just able to find the end zone every single time they were in the red zone, and he was a true battering ram at the goal line. And to cap off the evening, Dwayne Hollis, another friend of the program, I will not apologize, ended the night on a pick six that gave Outlaws fans hope that they have a path. They still have a path to the playoffs, and if they do sneak in and grab that fourth spot, that would be up against Albany in that first round. And there's a lot of great storylines if that ends up being the case. Malik Henry going back to Albany, Darius Prince going back to Albany, Dwayne Hollis going back to Albany. You got some stalwarts from last year, Hunter Swoboda, facing Albany for the first time. He wasn't with the Outlaws when they played earlier this year. So lots of great storylines that I think would be great for the league if they're able to snag that final playoff spot. But they got to win out, and they need some help from Southwest Kansas in order to get in there. But the final game we're going to talk about is probably the most surprising game of the weekend. It was the Nashville Cats versus the Corpus Christi Tritons, and Nashville won this game 44-39. I would say won, but I think survived might be a little bit more of a more accurate description of what Nashville did in this game. They had the hot hand coming in, won 4 of their last 5, and they were looking like they were ready to make a run. Again, they were in the driver's seat for their own destiny to get into the playoffs, and they did just about everything in their ability to screw this up, and they were very close to doing so. Early in the game, they had a classic celebrate before you get to the goal line and fumble the ball before you cross the goal line to score a touchdown. It got counted as a touchdown, but the replay clearly shows that he coughed it up, and they got very lucky there. They gave up multiple kick return touchdowns, and just the special teams was just bad, bad, bad all throughout the game. And that was something we've highlighted about them in the past, where their special teams and kick return and kickoff game is their weakness. And they displayed it yet again here. But they did find a way to win this game. It was against a Tritons team that's been through hell and back. And credit to Corpus Christi, they were knocking on the door of this one, and they looked a lot better than most people would have anticipated. I know they looked a lot better than I thought they would have. Tyler Colcat, quarterback for Nashville, he played another great game, and he had 196 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. But this Cat special teams has to improve ASAP, and it already cost them a game versus Albany, and it damn near cost them a game in Corpus Christi. They can't afford any slip ups in order to make the dance and to hopefully get a spot in the AF1 championship. They just have zero room for error at this point. But for Corpus Christi, this is a really impressive game that put the arena football community on notice, while at the same time providing some hope for what the future of arena football could look like in coastal Texas. Now, put the arena football community on notice is a little dramatic, yes, but I think we all know they're not going to win the AF1 championship. Even if they somehow find a way to get into the playoffs, they're not striking fear into the opponents. That's not going to happen. But at the same time, they're not the same pushover team that they have been over the past month or so. They showed a lot of fight in this game. Fred Payton looked pretty good, and he had a chance to win it late in the game. He had 190 yards and 3 touchdowns of his own before throwing that late interception. Josiah King at running back, he provided that burst on special teams to really, really keep them in this game. And again, given the circumstances, this Triton team was pretty impressive, and they showed that if they have a good, solid ownership group, better than what they've had this year, and a consistent roster, they could make some noise. It just kind of makes you wonder if they didn't go after the big name free agents like Darius Prince, Dwayne Hollis, Terrence Ames, like if they didn't go after some of those big names and stuck to what they could comfortably afford, what type of team could they have developed from week one all the way up until this point. If this is the team that we're seeing, kind of thrown together on a whim halfway through the season. So I think it's an interesting case study to look back on. But yeah, Corpus Christi, I don't think they're making the playoffs, but at the same time, they're no longer a pushover. And I think the teams remaining on their schedule have to go into these games knowing that it's going to be a bit of a battle. Next, we're going to switch over to the IFL, where they had a full weekend of games on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We're going to start off with the Jacksonville Sharks at the Massachusetts Pirates, and Massachusetts won this game 43-29. And this Pirates team got a much needed win over a beat up Jacksonville Sharks team. Let's just call it how it is. But the Pirates fed Puka Williams at running back early and often. He racked up over 140 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And Kenji Bahar at quarterback connected with Isaac Zico. Haven't really said his name much this year so far. 7 times for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Pirates did have a fumble early in the first quarter, but otherwise they played a pretty safe game and controlled the ball on offense behind running the ball well with Puka. And this was a lot more reminiscent of those 2023, 2024 Pirates games in terms of running the ball well and having the quarterback be supplemental to the offense and not necessarily the driving force, and really leaning on that running game and what that running back brings to the table in terms of utility. We saw that with Jimmy Robinson the past few years. We saw that with Puka Williams in this one as well. So I've been pretty harsh on Kenji Bahar over the past month or so, but he played pretty well coming out of the bye week as the Pirates snagged their 3rd win of the year and their 2nd against the Sharks. So Pirates could make some things interesting down the stretch as they fight for one of those playoff spots. And according to Krish from the Turf Tapes, he thinks they're going to go on a run. We'll have to see how that works out for him. But for the Sharks, this was a brutal portion of the schedule for them. They played on the road at Fishers on Sunday before this, and then 4 days later played again on the road in Massachusetts with a pretty banged up roster. The coaches show after said they weren't going to make excuses, but they did have travel stuff. They did have a holiday. They had injuries. So again, not making excuses, but that's what happened. So, but regardless, they had their 3rd different starting quarterback in 3 games to start this one, where Tyler Huff attempted to pick up where he left off in that second half against Fishers. They just had a tough time getting started. They were in a 19-point hole at halftime and just didn't have the personnel to storm back through the air like they needed to in this one. They got it into a 1 possession game, but Pirates were able to pull away and hold on for the win. Huff had 2 touchdowns on the ground and then connected with Marcus Rogers at wideout for 2 more through the air. But again, just not enough firepower in the second half as the Pirates were able to run the clock down. And the Sharks are now sitting at 6-3 on the year, only 1 game back from first place and plenty to play for. But they need some of their key guys back on offense quickly if they want to keep up in the race for the top seed in the East. They need Caleb Barker back, and they need him to limit his turnovers and really limit the number of interceptions that he's been throwing through the first half of the year in order to potentially have a home playoff game or 2 on the road to the IFL National Championship. But the next game we're going to talk about is the Quad City Steamwheelers at the Tulsa Oilers, and Quad City won this game 31-27. So heading into this game, it was unclear if Daquan Neal was going to get the start or if Quad City was going to play it safe and roll with the backup again. Neal had been banged up a little bit, but Neal got the start, and the Steamwheelers improved to 7-0 in games that he has started at quarterback this year. And while he wasn't lights out in this one, he played pretty well in his first game back. It was a real defensive battle and a battle for field position, if we're being honest. He scored 3 total touchdowns in this game, including a very, very clutch touchdown to Kevon Rudd in the final minute to put the game away and put them up with just enough time for them to hold on. But the possessions were very limited in this game due to a strong game from both teams on defense. Defenses played really well in this one, but that just made the possessions that much more valuable because there were less of them. It wasn't each team gets the ball 6 times in each half. That was just not this type of game. But Steamers held on, and they turned it into a win. And again, 7-0 with Daquan Neal at quarterback. They're number 1 in the East, and hopefully they'll be able to keep up their momentum for their sake because they have a great home field advantage where if the East has to run through Quad City, that bodes well for them based on historically how well they play at home versus on the road. But for Tulsa, this Quad City defense, they just seem to be the Oilers' kryptonite. There's just something about it where Tulsa's offense has been really impactful over the first 2 months of the year. I think they're averaging 47.7 points per game against teams not named Quad City. They're averaging 31.5 against Quad City. That's a 16-point swing. That's a two touchdown, two-point conversion swing. That's just massive. The Oilers had 4 possessions in a row that ended in 0 points and a turnover, and they just looked flat on offense for most of the evening. And was that the offense being flat, or was that the Quad City defense just really dialing it in and that defensive line just being extremely disruptive? Um, some Oilers fans I know weren't thrilled with officiating in the game, but I I don't I don't buy that. I think the calls that they were complaining about were fair calls by the refs, and there's plenty of other things Tulsa could have done differently to be able to walk away with a win here, despite what some of those folks may have thought. So TJ Edwards, he did end up finishing with 3 rushing touchdowns, a passing touchdown, and 2 interceptions after only having 2 interceptions on the entire year up to this point. So he just seemed off and just couldn't get cooking on offense until it was way too late, even late in the game. In the final minute, they had the ball on the 1 yard line. It took them 3 tush pushes to get into the end zone, and that's just not something we typically see from a TJ Edwards offense. But Quad City just seems to be a bad matchup for Tulsa, and the last game of the regular season for both these teams is Quad City and Tulsa. They play each other yet again. So that one feels like it's going to be one where the winner of the game probably gets a home playoff game, while the loser of that game might get knocked down to having to play every game on the road. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out, with that being the regular season finale. But sticking in the East, we're going to head over to the Fishers Freight at the Green Bay Blizzard. Green Bay won this game 55-39. And this Green Bay offense just goes. Like, it's hard enough to stop this offense, but then you mix in newly signed wide receiver slash athlete Jazarick Peterson returning the opening kickoff for a touchdown, and then the return of their kicker Andrew Mevis, who spent a little bit of time in the CFL earlier this month, or last month technically, I guess. But 8 of Green Bay's 9 offensive drives ended in points, 6 of them being touchdowns. Then that defense stepped up in the second half and then shut down that Freight offense, and it was just a perfect recipe for them as a team. And Max Mailer played really, really well in this one. 100 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and then 2 more on the ground, with Jalen Cagle catching 2 of those touchdowns and tacking on a rushing touchdown of his own. So I really like what the Blizzard are doing at this point in the season, but they're approaching a pretty difficult back half of the schedule, with Jacksonville twice, Arizona, and Quad City all on the docket. And this team looks prime for another playoff run, and it's going to be interesting to see, can they get over the hump, and if they end up having to play one of those or both of those playoff games on the road, how does that translate for them? So this offense seems to travel well. Defense always travels, and it seems like they're making some moves to tune up that defense in time for the second half of the season. So I'm a big fan of what Green Bay is doing, and I think they're going to be a hard out for anybody that has to face them in the playoffs. But for the Freight, the offense looked pretty good through the air and the ground for the first time in a while. Fishers, up to this point, has been very dependent on the ground game, and it just has not been a good situation for them through the air. It just hasn't. But recently signed quarterback Carlos Davis, he got the start in this one and came out swinging. He was making things happen for the Fishers offense heading into halftime, only down by 3. And it was a weird field goal challenge situation. Go check it out on the socials. But this Fishers offense looked multidimensional for the first time in months, and they were able to get it out to 5 different receivers in this one, with Davis finding Isaiah Cox for a touchdown and then running one in himself towards the end to cash the over. Thank you, Carlos. And then Shane Simpson tacked on 3 touchdowns as well. But the Freight really came unraveled in the second half, with 3 straight turnovers to open the third quarter, while Green Bay kept scoring. So it's never good when you stop scoring and the other team keeps going. That's not good. Little note for aspiring coaches and players out there. That's not good. But I think there is a reason to be optimistic about this offense, as long as Carlos Davis is in at quarterback. And I'll be interested to see how the offense grows and develops as he gets more time and more reps with his teammates. Because again, he got signed earlier that week and got thrown into the fire against a very talented Green Bay team and did pretty well, all things considered. So I like to see what Carlos Davis can continue to do at quarterback there. The next game we're going to talk about is the Northern Arizona Wranglers at the San Diego Strike Force. And San Diego won this game 35-32. So quarterback, wide receiver, DB, offensive weapon, all the above. Rudy Johnson, he got the keys to the offense again. And just like we saw in spurts last year with the Strike Force when he stepped in last week, even this offense shifted from being a pass heavy attack to a ground and pound offense with Rudy at the helm. And San Diego ran the ball 37 times in this game, which is crazy considering it's not out of the question to see them throw it 37 times with Nate Davis, but they totally flipped their identity. They racked up over 160 yards on the ground. They were able to dictate the flow of the game, especially in the second half. And defensively, San Diego hasn't been as dynamic as they were last year in terms of interceptions and forced turnovers, but they've been playing pretty well this year up to this point, and they got off to a solid start here. Atoa Fox, defensive back, played a great game in this one. 7.5 tackles, a forced fumble, fumble recovery, 2 pass breakups, and half a sack as well. And then kicker Ernesto Lacayo, friend of the program, also played a strong game in this one with 2 field goals and a game-icing deuce in the final minutes of the game to put them ahead for good, and ended up being the deciding factor in the game. So it remains to be seen how much more time Nate Davis is going to miss at quarterback for San Diego, but the team seems to be in good hands with an adjusted offensive scheme that seems to work for them, and they're able to manipulate their scheme based on the personnel that's available to them, and that's a credit and a testament to the coaching staff that they have there to be able to play to their team's strengths and not try to fit a square peg into a round hole per se. But for Northern Arizona, they got off to a tough start in this one, but played pretty well. And they were going, band for band, stack for stack with San Diego. And until that final quarter, it looked like Northern Arizona was going to win this one, but they just couldn't finish. And Ramon Atkins threw for 188 yards and a touchdown, added 2 more on the ground as well. Defensive back Kieran Page had 2 interceptions on the day. And again, like I said, the Wranglers looked like they were going to win this game. They were leading in the fourth quarter, but that brutal first quarter just came back to be too much to overcome for them. And if they had just played an average first quarter, they probably cruised to a victory in this game. But this team is stout, and I think they're a lot better than their record indicates right now. They're a much different team than the one that started 0-6, and they're going to play some teams tough. And to me, they are going to be the deciding factor in the Western Conference. Even though they may not make the playoffs, I think they're a little too far out at this point. I think they're going to ruin some other teams' seasons and really screw things up playoff-wise, seeding-wise for some other teams down the stretch. And I think they're going to be able to pull off some upsets and catch some teams sleeping. But the next game we're going to talk about is the San Antonio Gunslingers at the Tucson Sugar Skulls. San Antonio won this game 48-28. So I can't seem to put my finger on what San Antonio is this year. I just can't. I thought I had them pegged. I thought I knew what I was getting into with them, and they just seem to be a roller coaster where the highs are great, and when things are going well, things are going really well. But then the lows leave you questioning if can this team win a game the rest of this year? Like that's how high and low this team is, and the ceiling seems to be mid to high-ish, while that floor is low, 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 low. But Joaquin Collazo, he played a really great game in this one. He was named IFL Offensive Player of the Week, 153 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, along with 45 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground as well. He looked poised and in control from the start, and the Gunslingers started off hot on offense and never looked back. So just to give you an idea of how this game started for San Antonio, they scored, recovered a surprise onside kick, scored again, got a turnover on downs, and then scored again. So they were up 21-0 early in the second quarter, and they just looked great the entire game. 3 different receivers caught touchdowns in the game, and San Antonio was able to get things going on the ground as well, with over 120 rushing yards as a team, and their most well-balanced offensive output of the year so far. So it was very impressive to see. But like I said, the highs are high and the lows are low. But San Antonio is a very fun team to watch when they're hot and when they're getting things going. But for Tucson, they had a ton of momentum heading into their bye week before this game, and they just seemed to lose it all and came out just so flat in this one. They scored 57 against Bay Area, didn't get the win, but that was an offensive explosion for them. It looked like, all right, this team's starting to turn the corner, and they just couldn't do much until it was way too late. They were able to get things going in the second half, but by that point they were down by nearly 30, and the game was pretty much in hand. But yeah, for the Sugar Skulls, just schematically, they're at their best when they can run the ball effectively and, trade blows with their opponent, not have to come from behind. That's not how this team is built. That's not how this offense is built. And they were down 35-6 midway through the third quarter, and it was just a wrap from there. Like they are a very much a ball control, run it down your throat type offense, and it's hard to do that when you're down 30. And it just didn't click for them. But like San Antonio, I think Tucson's in a similar situation where they can play at a high level, but when things start to go wrong, they go very, very wrong. And there's not much you can do about it. But they're sitting at 3-5 right now, and they're still within striking range of the playoffs, but they really need to keep up with the rest of the pack, and they really needed this game to keep up with Vegas and with San Diego and some of those other teams. But this is a very tough back half of the schedule with an absolute gauntlet through the Western Conference for the Tucson Sugar Skulls. But they've shown they can go toe to toe with the best in the West. They just got to do it consistently now. And hopefully they knocked off the rust from the bye week and they'll be able to play a little bit more competitive football here moving forward. But the final game of the weekend for the IFL was the Arizona Rattlers at the Vegas Nighthawks. And Vegas won this game 52-37. So Vegas is in an interesting spot. They started quarterback Jaden DeLaura in this game. This was a crucial game for the Nighthawks because you can make a case that this game in particular would either set them up for success or disaster in the second half of the season. And the offense looked great with DeLaura at the helm. I love Jerome Johnson. I love what he brings to the table with his athleticism and his playmaking ability and the magic he can make with the ball. But there's just something about Jaden DeLaura that makes this offense click at a very efficient rate. He was very efficient passing the ball. He completed only 11 passes, but for 108 yards and 4 touchdowns. He facilitated the ground game well with Antonio Wimbush at running back. And they scored touchdowns on 7 of their 8 possessions, if you don't include the one to end the game and run out the clock. And they got points every time they touched the ball. So if you score every single time you touch the ball, you're going to have a good chance of winning a game because you just need your defense to make 1 or 2 stops, and they got more than 1 or 2 stops in this one. So I think if DeLaura is the starter moving forward in this offense, I think they're going to continue to be efficient and get the ball to their playmakers. I think we talked about it before where with Johnson, I feel like there's a higher ceiling but a lower floor, while DeLaura is a higher floor and a lower ceiling, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. So yeah, Vegas is in an interesting spot where their defense is playing well and DeLaura is making this offense click. And I'm interested to see how they continue to grow from here. But for Arizona, they had a rough start on offense, and this Vegas defense, they played really, really well. And Arizona just couldn't find ways to get stops on defense to match the stops that the Vegas defense was getting. Dalton Sneed, he didn't have a great game in this one, completed less than 50% of his passes and only scored 2 touchdowns on the day. But for the second straight week, Ron Brown Jr. at running back, he had 3 rushing touchdowns, and he seemed to be the driving force of the offense anytime they got close to the end zone. And Isaiah Houston, who had a massive impact in 3-4 games leading up into this one, didn't really have much of an impact in this one. And that impact was sorely missed in the passing game. They didn't really have anybody that popped off in the passing game that would have been very beneficial for them to come back and make it a game. But I don't think this was a bad game for Arizona. They just got outplayed by Vegas, and they split the season series with them 1-1. And I don't think there's a reason to hit the panic button for Arizona just yet as they get more and more healthy and Snead gets back on track. I think they'll continue to be a force in the West. I think them and Bay Area are going to duke it out for that 1 and 2 spot at the top of the conference. But they can't let this be a pattern because the Western Conference is not going to get easier. It's only going to get harder as the season progresses and those playoff spots are up for grabs. Last but not least, we're going to dive into the National Arena League, where we had 3 games go down this past weekend. 2 of them were very, very good, and one of them was a game, I guess. First one we're going to talk about is the Wheeling Miners at the Columbus Lions, and Wheeling won this game 47-44. And this is one of the wilder games of the entire weekend and probably the most wild game of the National Arena League season up to this point. And it's unfortunate that the game didn't really mean anything because Columbus was already in the playoffs and Wheeling was already out. Had Wheeling won the week prior to this game would have been a deciding game to get into the playoffs, and how electric would that have been? But Wheeling won this game, like I said, 47-44, and it was just an unbelievable finish. And we discussed in past episodes how Wheeling has just been so bad in the second halves of football games over the past month or so. But they ended up erupting for 30 points, 30 points in the fourth quarter as they came back to win this game in epic fashion. Quarterback Joseph Taylor scored 6 touchdowns on the day, 3 through the air, 3 on the ground, and the Miners were able to rack up over 100 rushing yards between Joseph Taylor and running back Charles Westbrook. And there was an awesome hook and ladder play that Wheeling took the lead on in the dying moments of the game. That was just so good. And the Wheeling Miners needed everything to go well in the second half to complete that comeback, and they nailed it to finish the season on the right foot and head into 2026 with some positive momentum. But for Columbus, this was a tough one for them, not just on the field, but off the field as well. Quarterback Vincent Espinoza is going through a heartbreaking tragedy with his family in the week leading up to the game. So our hearts go out to Vincent and hope all is as well as it could be. Just a bad situation there, and he wasn't able to play in this game. But unfortunately, Columbus didn't really have any other quarterbacks on the roster, so wide receiver Tramel Gooden stepped in and they turned into a ground and pound offensive attack. They rushed the ball nearly 40 times for 150 yards, and they built up a huge lead, but fumbled it away in the fourth quarter, and it was just a massive collapse. So Columbus looked to be on the right path heading into the playoffs, but the wind got taken out of their sails right before then, and they've got a first round matchup with the Beaumont Renegades lined up for this upcoming weekend, and they don't have much margin for error. They split their season series between the two teams, and Beaumont's only loss of the season was to Columbus, so they've got revenge on their mind as well. But speaking of Beaumont, they played the Shreveport Rougarou in their game this past weekend, and Beaumont won this game 63-12. It was about as out of hand as the score may indicate. It got out of hand very, very quickly, and it was just a beatdown by Beaumont. That's what this was. They were letting a bunch of people rotate in different positions, and they were letting as many people touch the ball as possible. Robinson didn't have to do much in this game at quarterback, and they just rolled over the Rougarou. And Shreveport, it seems like they've fallen apart down the stretch of the season, and their outlook for next season is grim at best. Some of the stories coming out of Louisiana that I've heard from players and via DMs and via some social activity, it's not ideal. It's not great. And it seems like the league might have to make a tough decision regarding their future. But for Beaumont, they get Columbus next week with a chance to avenge their only loss of the season and secure that berth in the NAL championship in their inaugural season, which is huge. And this clash between the two teams should be a great one. And the last game we're going to talk about is the Omaha Beef taking on the Colorado Spartans in Colorado. And Omaha won this game 35-34 to secure home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. So this was a unique scheduling opportunity where these teams played in the last week of the regular season. And then we knew they were playing in the first round of the playoffs. We just didn't know where. And this game was very, very good. Omaha jumped out to a 16-0 lead early, but the Colorado came storming back. They scored 27 unanswered to take a double-digit lead in the second half. It was truly a fight to the finish, but Omaha kicked a game-winning deuce with under a minute left to take the lead and ultimately win the game. But for Omaha specifically, they started the game off pretty good, but things came unraveled in the second and third quarter, and they eventually turned to legendary quarterback Tommy Armstrong, who played with the Beef over the past several years and had retired heading into this season. And he was just re-signed earlier this week, and he came into the game, and he was immediately a difference maker, and everything shifted for the Beef. He immediately threw a touchdown and gave this passing game a spark, honestly, that they've been missing for a little while. And or I shouldn't say a little while, but has been inconsistent leading up to that point. And he just looked great straight off the couch. He just looked really good in this offense. And running back Tobias Taylor, he looked great as well, averaging 6 yards a carry. He had a long touchdown run that was really sweet, but got called back due to an offensive penalty, which is a bummer. That play never officially happened, but it happened in our hearts. But the MVP of the game, no doubt, was Caleb Shudak, who delivered that clutch deuce at the end of the game. And he was just a massive difference maker. And he ultimately gave the Beef home field advantage in the rematch between these teams next week. But for Colorado, they had this game in their grasp, and they let Omaha back in. And Omaha, you can't do that to a team like Omaha. You just can't. And they were able to, Colorado was able to jump out to a double-digit lead in the second half, but they just couldn't finish. They just couldn't finish those drives with points to hold on to it. And Khalil Trotman at quarterback, he had a pretty strong day, 133 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and another on the ground. Wide receiver Stephen Newbold Jr. scored a touchdown through the air and on the ground as well. And Colorado had the ball with under a minute left, and they had a chance to go down and win it, but it seemed like they were content settling for a long field goal attempt. instead of really trying to push the ball downfield and score a touchdown, which I felt like obviously in hindsight was a mistake, but it felt very conservative even in the moment. And as good of a kicker that Luis Ferreira is, that's a tough spot for any kicker in any indoor and arena football league to kick it from midfield in the final seconds of the game. It was just a tough spot, and I feel like the offense could have done a little bit more to set them up for success in that situation. But Colorado will have to travel to Omaha this weekend instead of staying home with a chance to get to the NAL championship on the line. So I hope we see Andre Sale at quarterback and Lex Rosario playing for the Spartans. Neither played in this past game. I think they would be massive difference makers for Colorado if they're able to play against Omaha. If they don't, I think we see Omaha advance to that championship game yet again. But hopefully, we see the Spartans be able to field the best team possible to be able to, make some noise and make this more of a ball game. And the atmosphere in Omaha is going to be electric, and Colorado's got to rise to the occasion to match that energy and hopefully steal a win from Omaha, just like Omaha stole the win in Colorado. And that's the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out the show this week. Big thanks to Sam for hopping on and talking through his football journey, talking about this year's Albany team and what may be in the future for Mr. Castronova. So again, go give him a follow on socials. Let him know you heard him on Off the Wall. And we've got a great weekend of football ahead. We've got the NAL playoffs. We've got AF1 shaping up. We've got some really good matchups across AF1, IFL, and NAL. TAL. They kicked off. I didn't even get a chance to touch on some of the TAL stuff. We'll see if we can do that a little bit later on in the summertime. But it's a great time to be an arena and indoor football fan. So make sure you're keeping up with the games, watching all the games, and showing support to those teams any chance that you get. And while you're showing support, please make sure you're following Off the Wall on socials at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball, Off the Wall FB. We're on all the socials. Anywhere you're on social, we're probably there. Go give us a follow and come say hi. Come join the conversation. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you're liking and subscribing to the channel, sharing it with a friend, watch an old episode of the Turf Tapes, watch an old interview. I think we're over not over 50 interviews, but I think we're over like 35 different interviews at this point. So we've got quite a backlog of content there to check out if you've missed any of the shows over the past year or so. And then Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you're listening there, please make sure you're rating the show 5 stars, sharing it with a friend, liking the episode, doing all the things and stuff, and leave some kind words in the review. It always warms El Corazon right here. All right, just realized you can't see my hand. El Corazon right here. Warms the heart to see some of the kind words. So I appreciate all that. And is there anything else I'm missing? Did the social blogs, did the YouTube, the Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Yeah, that's it. So I really appreciate everyone taking the time to check out the show. There's only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend like an hour 20 listening to me ramble about arena and indoor football and listen to my conversation with Sam Castronova means a lot. So big thanks to all the support. Drop your thoughts in the comments on what you think is going to be the game of the weekend. Let me know what you're thinking. Come join the conversation on social. Love mixing it up with folks. And yeah, let's enjoy this last half of the indoor and arena football season as NAL's coming up on their playoffs. It's going to be wrapping up soon. AF1 is going to be approaching their playoffs soon, going to be wrapping up. IFL's in the back half of their season. TAL's just kicking off. But yeah, go check out the games. Go support the teams. Go support the leagues. And we appreciate all the support and love so far. So take care. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on socials.